we will talk about the student seats that are vacant for University Council next year. I'm joined here with the three competitors, as you could say, well, at least the three representatives of the three lists that we have. First of all, I start with you. Giel, can you introduce yourself?
Of course. My name is Giel van Wezel. I am a fifth-year student at the university. I did a bachelor's in technical medicine and I'm now following a master in industrial engineering and management. I've been active throughout my entire student career. I'm a member of an association in the city and I'm currently doing a board year at the university. And I'm now also active at DAS and I'm the lead candidate. So I'm curious.
Great. Thanks. Jurg.
Yeah, Jorg my name is. And I'm currently a fourth-year student. 1 year I did advanced technology and then switched to mechanical engineering. I am active with my own startup, Recyclewell. And last year I started UTOP, the party, because I thought there was a missing link in the current parties, DAS and Eureka. So and this year I'm, like last year, the party leader, and I will be representing UTOP today.
And Sjoerd.
Hi, my name is Sjoerd. I'm a fourth-year student at the UT studying the Master of Electrical Engineering. I've also been active throughout my student life and I've done a board chair for the Study Association of Scintilla. Currently I'm active as a student member in the University Committee of Education and I'm very proud to represent Eureka for this campaign this year.
So, I should also introduce myself. I'm a former student of the University of Twente and at this moment still an employee of the University of Twente. Actually, was asked because I'm also the chairman of the University Council, and as such, I should know something of the topics we are going to talk about today. One of the very important topic we see that every now and then coming up, we have to slow down internationalization. We need a student stop, things like that. So I would like to have your point of view on internationalization. Should we slow down? And also add to that, what is an inclusive university for you? Let's start with that question. Sure. What does an inclusive university mean to you?
Yeah, an inclusive university is very important for Eureka because we as a party try to be inclusive and represent all the students of the university. And in an inclusive university, students that have Dutch nationality or other nationalities should be able to collaborate in a constructive way, learn from each other, learn from the different cultures and the different aspects that they know from each other.
And can different cultures also be, for instance, Frisian and Limburg?
In my opinion, for sure, I think
is that sufficient different?
Sufficient in the sense that they can work together and learn from each other. I think so. Yeah, maybe one person has learned some other things than the other. But of course, as an international university, that's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for more than that, and we want to have, for instance, a German student work together with a Pakistani student, and that's probably more cultural difference than Frisian and.
Don't underestimate that.
But I won't underestimate that.
Okay.
No.
For you, Giel.
Inclusivity is of utmost important, of course. There's tons of different nationalities at the UT and the internationalization rate is growing significantly. So we need to make sure that all the proper facilities are in place to cater to these students in these different backgrounds. We need to make sure that they properly integrate together and that the study facilities are there to cater to this. So make sure indeed that these students from different backgrounds can properly work together. And furthermore, the UT should also be proficient enough in English, for example. So we need to make sure everything is at a proper level so that everyone can understand everyone and get along with them.
Going to you, Jorg.
Yeah, UTOP. I started it especially because I wanted to improve the inclusivity of the university. I was part of the bachelor of the university university party in which we with 20 other internationalities, and I talked a lot about with these students, and they all had their own problems with the university from that inclusivity point. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, and that's all why last year we saw it. Our first candidate was someone from Botswana, Lefika. So I think we brought some inclusivity to the university, but also like what is inclusion is that not only to your study that you can join it, but also to be active at every level of the university. That also means that you can have the possibility to join a board. A lot of boards at the university are still Dutch. Then you also have the student associations of the studios. So the students associations, you see a lot of Dutch people there. It's difficult for international students to come there. and including housing, also a big problem.
How do you
I-
want to change that student associations, student boards, etc.? How do you want to change that?
What I saw is that, for example, when I joined Advanced Technology, that's a study that started with with the
Yeah.
English language. There you see more international students in a board than, for example, a traditionally Dutch study. So with the switch to English language, we see already a great shift. So language can be a great facilitator there, but also have those languages at the core of every level of the university.
So,
If I
but
can add something to that?
yeah, please
I
do.
think
Sure.
one important factor is also financing. Some students from other countries, from outside the ER specifically, have to pay very large tuitions. And if they do a part-time board year or full-time board year, they don't get the education, but they have to pay a lot of tuition compared to us, for instance. And for that reason, it's very important for us as a university to invest in these students so that they can have what we call the FOBOS, so the grants that they get the compensation in place for their amount of tuition fee.
Yeah.
I think that promotes inclusivity and also
Of course, the
entrepreneurship.
Phobos thing is really important as well. But we shouldn't force, I think, UT policy on the associations as well. I think associations should still have a free choice about what language they should remain in.
Yeah.
And I think progress in study associations is made as we're transitioning towards more English language studies. And that, of course, the boards are going to grow automatically towards a more international or more inclusive, maybe, system. But I don't think that UT policy should be forced on some associations to make sure everything is.
We can make a
To
distinction
what
maybe
extent?
between the kind of associations. I think for study associations, they have to represent the students of a certain study, and if that study is international, then I think by default these study associations should be able to cater to all their students inclusively. So that also includes catering to these international students at least.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you that the student associations of a certain study should definitely cater to all the students that follow that study program. However, I do not think that you should force internationalization on certain boards or certain.
Well,
associations.
which one would you exclude, Giel? Because I noticed
Which
here a little bit
associations?
different, so that's
No,
why I want to.
I
no,
mean,
it's-
the student associations,
No, I
right?
do not. I do not.
don't
I
not
think it's
need
for
those?
all the associations. So, for
Let's-
example,
let's-
I'm a sports player. I play
Yeah.
field hockey,
Yeah.
for example. So I'm not going to join a soccer association, football association. So that's also some form
But
of.
do you expect that your hockey association should also be very accessible to non-Dutch speakers?
Of course, of course.
Is that something we should, as a university, should ask sport associations, etc.?
Yeah, but if I don't have anything with the culture at a certain association, I'm not joining that association.
And for you, cultures and also language.
The
I'm
culture
hearing.
could be part of. Could be
The-
part
the-
of the
and-
language.
but to what extent should we do that? I specifically go to the hockey association because I know we have a very nice hockey field
And
lying over there somewhere,
and that's it.
and that's fine. That's by university. So,
Yeah.
to what extent
of
can
course,
then
that's-
a
that's-
international student not say, "Well, this is also paid for by my money"?
And it is.
Partly, I can actually cut out a small part of the hockey field. That's mine.
And I think the communication, at least on level, let's start at the board levels. If we start, of course, if you are on a hockey field and you have Dutch team members and you want to talk Dutch, like the university is not going to police what you're going to talk like. But if you have a board and you have associations, especially sport association, for example, with international students, it should be have the same communication in English that is accessible for them. So I think UTOP, we stand for inclusivity on all levels, and that's everything in the university.
Shoot.
Yeah, I think that's the core of inclusivity. You said we shouldn't force these boards to do that, but I think that's the core of the problem. If you have to force it, then that's a problem. If you do that, then you're going to create a negative atmosphere around it, and that's not good for anyone. We should find a way that associations want to be inclusive, and maybe that takes time, but in the end, as you say, Herbert, some of the facilities we have are financed by the UT, and that should be taken into consideration as well, because these international students do pay for it.
At the same time, when we would have sit down here 4 years ago, we would immediately have started in Dutch, and now we start immediately in English without any discussion. Actually,
Which is great.
well, of course we have a technician who likes us to speak some Indian language, but that's a different thing.
No, but of course, and I agree with you, and that's also the transition that we
Yeah.
had from Dutch to English as an official spoken language at the UT. But then
But did we go too fast?
I don't know. I think that if the facilities are in place and that everything is up to
Okay.
par, that
Okay.
we can maintain the proper quality of education and the proper quality of everything surrounding
course,
us,
I
it should be fine.
I've heard specific signals that say, oh, it goes too fast. So that's the question, does it go too fast? And perhaps we should rephrase it a little bit, and that's namely for the fact we should introduce a student stop for some education because this is going crazy. We cannot manage that anymore. And due to quality, we have to limit the number of students. You have any
Yeah, I
perspective on
think.
that?
Sorry.
You have any perspective on that?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. Not in terms specifically of internationalization, but in terms of growth. Because what is going too fast, in my opinion, and Eureka's opinion, is the growth of the university in general. We see such an increasing influx of students that we cannot continue to guarantee the quality of education that we want, especially as a small scale university, which we promise. If we can't offer that, that's very bad on our side. So we need to look into a way to limit that. Currently, we cannot limit the influx of Dutch students or EER students. So we should consider options for in which ways can we make sure that we don't grow out of proportion so that we cannot provide the educational quality that we want to.
It takes about a year, 2 years before you have a effect stop in place.
Yeah, but we should look that far into the future, of course, because if we keep on going like this for 2 years, students come here and they expect small scale education and they have to go to the cinema to take a lecture, which is of course not acceptable.
Well, the cinema has very nice seats, so you can sit very nice down, and the screen quality is a lot better. So,
I mean, maybe some people like it.
okay, which programs we should focus on the moment we say, well, this is going too fast?
I think it's in general, we should look at the growth of the university and how the facilities are keeping up. And that's both aimed at the growth of students in general. Like, if we continue to physical university in the coming academic year, do we still have plenty of facilities to cater for all these students' needs? And then in study spaces, lecture halls, but also teaching staff. And we need to make sure that that's up to par first before we keep this growth rate.
And we cannot adjust that probably as fast as the growth sometimes goes.
I hope we can manage.
Yeah.
And how do you want to limit that?
I don't want to limit.
Now, how do you want to make sure the growth is not going out of control?
No, I want to be ahead of that. I want to be. I want to make sure that the university can cope with the growth in students. If that's what the university is aiming for, then the facility should be.
But this is also a typical Dutch problem.
Well, I think it is, but we've also had the small-scale University of Twente that we know of, that we've liked throughout this time.
Yeah. At the same
But we're
time,
growing,
the same time, we need the number of students to maintain the campus. So we could also say, well, we're going to go down in size, and we go also one sports center down.
No, true.
So there's also a little bit a balance.
I think we
There
should
has
not
been growth, right?
compensate on sport or anything. But what I hear from Eureka is like, oh, we can't stop Dutch people or EU students from coming. So almost you're implying that we should look at what other students are coming. I think I think a study stop or study stop should not be enforced on. If it is enforced, it should be enforced equally on all people joining university with strict rules. But I don't think a student stop is the solution. I think either way, you should look at, okay, if we have a super efficient marketing team, which we have, because a lot of students are coming to us, are they doing the good job? But is that the good job then for the university? And on the other side is like, how can we facilitate indeed this growth of the university? And what we think is that there are a lot of possibilities to grow, and indeed we have a limited amount of lecture halls, but we see also in the cinemas we can do that. The cinemas are ready for it. There are a lot of, especially at Kennis Park, a lot of facilities available. That's just as those facilities are sometimes even nearer than some facilities around the campus. And we are talking about hybrid education. Not all education has to be physically on campus. And what students say, they want a hybrid.
I find this a very interesting topic, so I'm going to spend a little bit time on this with the question, what does education and learning mean to you? This was an unsurprised question.
Oh, it was a surprising question. So I wanted to first go into the hybrid education part that we've known for these past 1.5 years. So most of it has been online, and prior to that, everything was physical. And I hope we're moving towards this hybrid way in the coming years, which could also be a part of a solution.
That's why I made my question, what does education and learning mean to you? How do you learn? What is the most effective way for you to learn, or for students you want to represent to learn?
So first you get the proper education in the lectures. But then what I also really liked and why I chose in particular for the University of Twente was the small scale learning environment that we're in.
Yeah.
The personal attention that you get from teachers and from staff. And that assistance has helped me during my study time.
Shoot.
For me, what I really like, and the way I really like to learn, and what I like about University of Twente, is the project way of working that we have. So a lot of collaboration, working on real problems. I think we're heading into right the directions with that, with our university as well, connecting with the industry, trying to learn real problems, and based on that, learn about your study. In addition to, of course, the theory.
Yeah. But where is the main thing where you say, this is where I learn? Is that because you're sitting in a large lecture hall and
No.
a nice story, or where do you learn?
I think lectures are quite an old-fashioned way of education, and as Eureka, we completely support to innovate in education. So look into new ways to have education, maybe different kind of projects, different kind of structures. Just explore it.
Yeah. So
You learn by doing, right? So
Yeah.
so indeed, what I think, and also my students, I talked to professors, they say, okay, they were also doubting, is lecturing the best way to learn something? I think learning is something by doing, and indeed the small scale of the university, like the small, the tutorials, the typical tutorials at the university, that's where you learn it, and then even better in projects, and then in projects where you're motivated for the cause of the project. Too often we get a project out of the drawer from a professor, he lays it on the table, you make the project, at the end, a Friday night at a minute to 12, you hand it in, and then it's never looked at again, okay, maybe for the grading, and you never do something with it, and the value is almost gone. Instead, of course, you learn something, but what we think is we should have some motivation.
Yeah.
Some projects do really nice. You have, for example, competitions, and we show it. We had at Advanced Technology, we needed to make a refrigerator, and it's all in the hallway, and everyone's looking. I think that's a motivation. You present it, but with a real goal. A better goal would even be to do projects at companies, and this is difficult. You have NDAs, of course, what we talked about.
that's one thing, but they can also be very complex.
They can be really complex, and that's also what we saw for mechanical engineering. We did it with industrial design and with the technische bedrijfskunde in Dutch. We combined those in one big project. Then you have the same effort, but you can apply to free studies. You have collaboration between studies, which is also something we want to do. FEST is the party that does it already, and we think parties like FEST, for example, should be fully supported by the university to grow with those projects.
Now, what I find it always a very interesting example, because I also heard quite negative sounds about this. I'm very enthusiastic about it, but also quite negative, because students already very often simply say, well, but I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm an industrial designer, I'm in the management sector, and this is the only thing I'm interested in.
And you talk about what you're learning, and scientifically it's been proven that you learn with struggle.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle. It's a struggle to work with other people. So that's a big learning point in your career that you can have. So I think it's good that you say people are struggling with it, because that's when you learn.
Yeah. Exactly. Now the other thing what you said is it's graded and then put into a drawer. I recognize it. So how do we make feedback effective?
Yeah. So that's a good point. I think learning should not be you learn for a subject and get a grade. In my personal opinion, pull forward the exams or pull forward some testing, because the biggest what I experienced is learning you get from your feedback. For example, for my bachelor proposal, I wrote a draft, and then I made the final version. With the draft and with that feedback, I see that I learn a lot of things. So
you should also assess students about what they do with feedback.
Process and the feedback is really important. Indeed. Yeah.
Challenge-based, sure.
What did you want to ask?
I want to go a little bit in challenge-based learning.
Yeah.
Is this the solution for everything that we do?
No, it's well, nothing is a solution to everything we do. I think we can all agree to that. But it's really a really good initiative to explore, and Eureka really support going into that direction. And as you said, it's very difficult to implement. The university has been working on trying to get challenge-based learning off the ground. These projects are ongoing. But it's just difficult. But we need to make sure that we keep investing enough into these projects so that in the end we do see some good results from that.
A kind of challenge-based learning, as I would say, is, for instance, working in a board or a committee. You could also say this is challenge-based learning.
Completely agree, yeah.
So, and I know there's already talk for a long time about having a minor like this. but it never really flew.
A board minor.
Yeah, board minor.
Yeah, I think I and Eureka support the introduction of a board
Mhm.
minor. I think.
What should a student learn in a board minor? Because that's probably one of the things also with challenge-based learning. How do you define what a student learns?
Well, of course, a study has certain sets of regulations that they say
Mhm.
to get your ECs, you need to pass these certain requirements.
Yeah.
So if we want to hand out ECs to students for instance, a board year, we need to make sure that as a study, we are able to make it measurable and know what a student learned.
Mhm.
Now, I think that the board year is very, very important, very useful for a student in their learning process. So usually, I think they already get enough additional skills from that they would suffice to give ECs to it. But you need to add a project to that to make sure that it's measurable for a study, so you can bind those ECs to it.
I agree.
Minor.
I agree. I think
Yeah.
it's the board minor. The idea is great. That
Mhm.
you learn how to work in an interdisciplinary team. Same as what you just
Yeah.
said about the different studies connecting in
Yeah.
those tasks
Mhm.
coming forth. And it should really help in the valorization of your academic career into your
Yeah.
eventual working path.
Mhm.
Working together with different people whom you might not
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
not have known before. It helps you work in teams, it helps you work in groups, and it helps you solve problems.
Mhm.
And the same goes for grading. Like, how do you grade a board minor? It's about what you learn from it and what you can put into practice. Same as I don't really want to be graded on my Dutch writing skills, for example, if I'm taking a chemistry course.
Yeah.
It should be about the formulas that I write down.
Mhm.
And that's I think what's important about it.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
making sure you can put those skills that you've learned into writing, work with the feedback you get from it, and
Yeah,
make sure it helps in your eventual
I
career.
have to say, you call a board minor, I would say being active minor, something like that. Because if we're saying that we say, okay, it's a board minor, we exclude all those people that are active at student teams, for example, Solar Team Twente or the Solar Board teams. There's a lot of variety of students that are active, that doing on an academic level, I would
Yeah.
say, on a university level, are contribute. And it's difficult to grade them, and I agree with that.
But the dream team is much easier. I mean, if you let's be frank. The moment you work on your solar car,
Yeah.
and you're gonna be in charge of how good the car is, what strategy you want to do, you can make a very nice project out of that.
Yeah.
Which you can easily say, well, I'm gonna go to a wind tunnel, I do these measurements, and I'm
Yeah, that indeed. And
so that's even
so
easier
it's
than
maybe
than a
even
board
easier,
minor.
but that's why I want to mention it, because we should not include it when thinking about structuring such a minor. We
Mhm.
should, at the foundation of it, we should incorporate at least
Mhm.
the possibilities to have more activism. But what we at UTOP say is activism on your own terms, so people can be active.
Mhm.
I'm an entrepreneur myself. I'm active, but I can't get any recognition from that from the university in my studies. I should always do it next to my studies.
Mhm.
So what we think is that in the foundation of
Mhm.
with that plan, I think board is a good start. Let's think about a board and start with that. But then in that process, think about, okay, if in the future we want to include more
Mhm.
programs, more activism.
But that's also
We should
being
do that.
worked on already. You know, we have activism recognition programs that are started up. So we are, I think, going into the direction that we all agree with.
Is
So
it going fast enough?
we should support it to make sure that that is fast enough. But also, you have to, of course, be critical about it. You can't just, as a university, say we give ECs to everything,
Yep.
because that undermines the
great.
quality of education. So yes, this is a very nice vision. I think we share, but also be critical of how you do it. You can do it very quickly, but then maybe in the end, the quality of the project will be too low, and then you have a bad system and it won't work.
No, I don't mean quickly implementing. I mean quickly or going fast forward with the progress. And that I think it's a really important point that we as a university
Yeah.
have critical but rewarding
Yeah.
credits for.
But the
activism.
main solution is, how do we assess in the
Yeah.
end as a
Yeah.
university? Because as university you have to stand for
Yeah.
the fact that you hand out ECs.
Yeah.
It should not be a gift. Students have to work for something.
Yeah.
And you should say it should be a certain level.
I've done my minors and also
Yeah.
in those minors at the end, most of in those cases you deliver a project.
Mhm.
And that project can be in the board and you can have certain
Mhm.
goals that you set at the beginning of it,
Mhm.
which is, for example, agreed upon
Mhm.
by a professor, and then at the end you deliver on those deliverables, and then
Yeah.
you can be graded. So
Mhm.
that's one example that we could
Yeah.
include it.
Okay, that's one. And of course, I could mention also another thing, and that's namely, what are you going to do after you finish probably your master?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Expect you don't stop after your bachelor, but
UTOP has been founded to connect the industry and the university. What I saw during my studies that we are really close about looking in and then out. What we should do, see what is the role as a university for society and see what is going on in society. It's ever changing. We as a university should be flexible and also adaptive to what is happening in society and create a bridge between the university and society. And there are great examples of that. For example, Novelty helping entrepreneurs doing stuff. But there should be better connection, and we should.
Should you want to say something about connection with society?
No, yeah, I want to ask a question, which is what, because you say YouTube is founded based on that idea, that connection to the corporate region. I
Not
guess.
corporate, the business and society.
That's why I want to go to society indeed, and not industry.
Okay, so I wonder what is YouTube's plans and what has YouTube achieved on these fields? Because as Eureka, we also say we support entrepreneurship and connection to business. And Eureka has taken an initiative to create a project which is now being actually executed by the university to connect students, both internationally and Dutch, to industry. Also to teach international students, if they go into that project, something about corporate culture and a little bit about language, because that's embedded with culture. So we have taken initiative and a lot of work to implement these ideas actually. And I wonder, you take as your flagship these ideas, but what have you implemented?
So you talk about implementation and also talking about taking steps to do it a good way. What we have the last year, what we've been doing, we're talking to two facilitators in the industry that, for example, are recruiters. But what we say as YouTube, we want to have a facturenbank, so a vacancy pool where all students are connected to. And right now, it's all distributed throughout the university. Several parties to connect to. There's no main point. We should first of all centralize the vacancies on all levels, projects, till your job, till your internship. So that's what we are working on. And we're not just saying this. We are working this. Last year we've done it. Levika in the board has also mentioned it. Sometimes then the question was asked to us, okay, but is there a role for university? Yes, it is. The university, in the end, wants to prepare students for their career, right? And I think the best way to do that is to connect them in the whole of their studies to these jobs. Enschede has really high non-employability because a lot of students are taking up the small jobs, like in the cafeteria and those kind of things. We should pull those students and put them at real companies where they can do meaningful side jobs. Then we can help both Enschede and the university.
Giel, you take on this. Connection to society, and then I want to go to a slightly different thing.
I think it's of tremendous importance what you've been saying, and I think that's also why DAS joined quite a while ago in the University Council. Why we were founded was to make sure that everybody has enough time next to the studies to have time for other stuff, and that doesn't just mean board years or committees, but also working on your own startup or taking parts in top sports. And indeed, if we That's one of the main important reasons why DAS was founded. But then also, do we want this to be intracurricularly? I think that would be a benefit for all the students at the UT. Working together with companies, so the valorization process in the end of your academic career should become a lot easier. But also giving students the space to get to learn what they'll be doing after their studies.
That's a really important thing to mention is that the provincie Overijssel spending like millions to pull students back to this region. Like with a really small proportion of that of spending, we can make sure people stay here, or after their career, after 10 years, to think, okay, I know these companies in Twente, I can go back to this region. Those are both things I think the university should look at and then form policies.
And Eureka has created the initiative in the University Council to actually realize that for over 2 years in a very large scale. So
and we support it, of course.
Okay, different topic. So you all already 3rd, 4th year students, so you walk around on this university for some time now. So you also know the situation before we became the big education experiment called online education. You can say, I say it as an education experiment because we had to do a lot of things, find out a lot of things as university, both staff, both students, how to get learning further. Now, Giel, I start with you. What did you absolutely miss? What you say, well, I never thought I would like this aspect. And what do you want as Eureka? what is your vision on
Das.
where are we going?
This one's Das.
Sorry, where does you are going to? So I should have noticed that there's a DAS. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
no worries.
You should call yourself
Um,
Thai. It's easier.
Yeah, we'll look into that. I wouldn't say it's an experiment. It overcame us. Like, from one day to the other, everything had to be online and we couldn't go anymore. And prior to moving everything online, the main hot topic of discussion was, should the talks at the coffee machine be in Dutch or in English,
Yeah.
as the official language of the UT is transitioning to English. And when we transitioned to online, that discussion stopped completely because those talks at the coffee machine stopped. And that's what
Yeah,
I've been
yeah,
missing.
yeah,
Like integration with other students,
Yeah.
actually talking about something
Mhm.
else than just studying.
Okay, that's the first one. What did you completely miss? Now the second one is what should we keep?
What should we keep? I'm also a great advocate of partly online education, having at least the availability of recorded lectures, for
Yeah.
example,
Mhm.
and whether or not we can maintain the quality that they've been having the last part of this year, we do not know yet, because in certain hybrid forms of education, you also want to offer the physical component that we've had in those first 2 or 3 years that we've studied here. But it's also of great benefit to students who want to rewatch their lectures,
Yeah.
or who couldn't attend the
Yeah.
lecture, to have the opportunity to
Okay.
rewatch it online.
Okay, Jor,
Yeah, what did I miss?
try to keep it a little bit shorter.
I've tried to keep it shorter. I definitely missed interactions. I think that's a big, one of the most important things that you should have during your becoming a student, becoming more than a student even. And what I did not miss is sometimes the lectures at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think a lot of students don't. And last year we campaigned with Luc. It was his main point was, okay, recordings of lectures should be a must. Then COVID came, of course, and then it helped us a lot. And it was all recorded. Let's not waste all the time that you, for example, and all the teachers spent on recording those lectures. I talked to professors, a nice form of education would be, you have a set of recordings, that is the basis of your introduction to your topic. Then you have some preparation exercise that you can do, and then you come to the university in this small education that we can then afford, because we can split it over the week, and then we can really use the facilities to have those 1-to-1 or like 1 to 30 people tutorials where you can work on those projects and work on it. But let's not waste all the time that's spent and money is spent on the recordings of those lectures, and keep those recordings in the future as a basis of education.
Sure.
What I miss, I think same as you guys, social cohesion, just talking with your fellow students. And I also heard that a lot of first year students, for instance, they actually miss a whole way of information flow that we take for granted. There's a lot of subtle communication between students about their courses, about how studying works, how their bachelor assignment is supposed to work. That communicational channel has completely been removed, and that's actually seen now by study advisors. That there's a missing link there. So that's what we should focus on bringing back.
How can we improve it even further? What
Once it's back.
Yeah.
I think by being an inclusive and social university, making sure all students feel welcome, all students are able to join that channel of communication and able to join those talks at the coffee corner, so that they get that information in a fun way.
People have missed talking to each other.
Yeah.
People have not learned or gotten to know new people. They came to the university, had their kick in, and they were basically stuck to the group that they chose, but they haven't had the chance to interact with different
But
people.
what can we improve? Because this is what we know. And it's good to mention this. But what can we do to improve things? What do you think? Well, the moment we have to do things online, things like what is actually what we can add as university from this is the thing that helps us to do it even better.
So what we started out was very static lectures, where you basically got sent a video via email from one of my first professors back then, and you just had to watch the lecture. And that moved towards more online, more interactive, and eventually Teams meetings, which you had with your teacher, who then held the lecture. And then there was also already some form of communication possible between students. And students should be able to get to know each other, get to know the students of their respective study program, and interact with each other. And that's something we can still improve on, and we hope to improve once we get partly physical education back. which is of course a great aim for next year.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, I feel very sorry for the students that I think maybe started in this difficult year, because that's for people that started here earlier and that met their friends, they have their basis there, and that's really important. That's also why the kick in, I think it's almost really almost super advisable for people to do. But then
How do we get more students to go to the kick-in? Because we do not achieve 100% of participation.
no, and then some maybe during your education, for example, in the winter, you can have a second kick in, right? I don't know, have it more spread out, have more possibilities. Some people are not just available physically.
No, it's true. Do want to immediately bring in some practical considerations. Winter kick in, nice idea. You're missing days of education. Very big problem for a teacher. They have very tight
We
schedule.
can start earlier.
Start earlier with the winter kick in.
No, with the simply teaching. We simply start end of August.
Yeah, but then you're taking away their holiday. So there's compromises to be made. You know? So it's not very easy. But yeah, in terms of letting people know, go to the kick-in, good communication, and making them understand why it's so important to go to the kick-in.
Yeah.
As a student that's not used to introduction days, it may not be very obvious why this is so important on the social side especially.
Okay.
The kick-in is the introduction to your living environment,
Yeah.
and it's something the UT should promote and should facilitate for all the students coming here. And should make sure that every student that wants to come here also can attend physically the kick-in,
Yeah.
that everything is in
But
place for them.
if an international student during the kick-in meets a soccer team or I don't know, any sport team or any association that talks primarily Dutch, do you think that student feels included?
That's a good question. I think there should be definite opportunities for everyone to feel included in a group.
Yeah, so that's why I think YouTube thinks that the international students should be, first of all, let's start with supporting international students to join those associations, have this association welcoming. Because if, for example, you have a group that wants to touch, if you at least have 1 or 2 people that are international, they can be the hook for people to come in and have one person at least to talk to. And I think that's important, that we have some kind of a basis at every level of the university and around it that is international.
And I agree with you. I really want to go into this point as well.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Because I agree with you. There should be ample opportunities for international students, and that's what I like about the UT, and what I like about the large part of students here is that everyone speaks English very well and is usually very welcoming to students from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
But do you want to force every group to then speak
I
English?
don't think forcing anything is good, but we should really consider the chances that people have to join. So we should maybe have some obligatory chances that people should have. For example, cooptation, right? That's a really big problem. There, like most of students living on campus are Dutch, because I have Dutch houses. 10 out of 10 is Dutch. I had the same thing. I lived there, and then sometimes an international slips in because she didn't get one, and it was.
I don't think that's completely true. There's quite some mixed houses.
There are some mixed. Sorry, there's mixed houses and there are completely Dutch houses. And then you could ask for mixed houses. Do you think it's good or bad living with international students? And say, oh, it's fine. It's the same as with Dutch people. Some Dutch people are even. I don't like their specifically Dutch culture. That's really big examples. And there's some really Dutch houses, and they say, okay, no, we don't like international students. So then you can ask, okay, why the Dutch people at the international of that Dutch house don't like international students, and the Dutch people that is actually living with the international student likes the international student? Maybe because they are never introduced to international students.
The challenge of cooptation.
Well,
Sure.
to respond and go on about cooptation, not every house is the same. You can't just house A by the fact of house B. But then the question, you say you started with cooptation as a problem. Do you want to abolish this, and what do you want instead?
Okay, first of all, I think the house at the end should always have the right to choose the people they're living with. I think that's really important for the atmosphere in the house. Living is really important. It's almost a lot of time you spend next to your studies. We think there should be a possibility for the typical hospitation conversations, right? You invite people. We think there should be a minimum that, or a percentage or a proportion of those hospitations that at least 1 or 2 international students should be invited. A margin or minimum, at least. Let's start with 1. Let's start with 1 international student to have the opportunity to at least have a conversation at the campus and present himself. Because from experience,
It's so easy for an international student to simply come over to Twente as a.
okay, I get your point. So for first students, that's difficult.
That you're not taking the problem by the root, which is namely the communication of the cooptation system to the students that are international. If international students usually are not familiar with this cooptation system that Dutch students already know by heart.
Yeah.
And because of that, they don't know how to get into it, and then they feel excluded from it. So we should start with improving the communication towards international students in regards to cooptation.
Definitely. Sorry, that's why
I think
Oh,
that's
Phil,
important.
your
as well.
part?
I think that's important as well. We need to find the root cause of the problem. Is the problem cooptation? Is the problem communication
And
to
housing.
international students? Or could it be housing? Could there be that there's just not sufficient opportunities for students who don't
So
want to
okay,
live
let
in
me
cooptation?
ask another question in this challenging topic, and that's namely, how is this done at other universities? Are we the only ones that have a problem?
So the Vesta, they of course because the housing problem is not specifically a UT problem, it's a problem of the Vesta. And they did a survey going also to other universities, what is their housing policy, and they found out that, well, basically all universities do have this cooptation system in place, or the most student cities. So yeah, this cooptation system is very widespread in the Netherlands. It's not just
But-
an education
Okay,
system.
but
Yeah,
let me talk about one thing, because you talk about communication. At the house, we had international students that know that this works here. We received a message in the house group chat in English. Oh, it was discarded. Not my decision, but there are Dutch students that discarded only Dutch people. If that's the culture that you have, I
But
think that's not something that you
it's-
want.
It's
That's
not
not
solved
policy.
with a margin then.
so sorry, no, that's not so. So
that-
what I think is that those should be at least invited. That you at least have. Oh, we have a group. Oh, we know from the university at campus. We at least have one or two. We should invite to a
You're-
conversation,
Okay,
right?
Phil, your solution.
Yeah, you're going back to cooptation as a problem and forcing the solution on the students themselves. That's how it feels like. You're going to have them include that margin and make sure that they invite international students over. Whereas I don't think that's the heart of the problem. That lies at the heart of the problem. I think indeed what we found in the surveys that were done at different universities to see how cooptation systems exist over there is that there were still cooptation systems, but there were also plenty of ample other opportunities for students coming from different backgrounds, students who don't want to live in houses with cooptation, to
Definitely.
still find housing.
Definitely. We
Okay,
have a big hotel. at the
we are
university,
almost at the end of this thing, so I have one last question, because I know that student parties usually get very excited when we talk about evening lectures. And why do I bring this up? Very simple. We get a choice. Either it's a lecture on campus and it's in the evening, or it's going to be a online lecture. What is going to be your choice in that case?
So the choice is
Or
evening lecture, on
here
campus
on campus,
or online lecture
or
at
online
IBM.
lecture, and because that can be pre-recorded, can be any time. What is going to be a choice of DAS in this?
I'll choose the online lecture. I think.
Okay.
I think that my evenings, well, those are outside my study hours that I've planned, and I want to do different things in my
Yeah.
evening. I want to exercise. I
And
wanna-
if the end is going to be all lectures are online, what's
well,
then-
that's
what's
not
relevant?
something we want with the entire university,
Yeah.
right?
So-
That's
what-
what on the gigantic
Yeah.
billboard when you
Where's the
drive
balance?
up
Yeah.
the lane.
Okay.
We've got 1.5
Yeah.
square kilometers of university.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of space.
Yeah.
So we're not going to move everything online, and that's
Yeah.
not what we want. We just want the
Mhm.
opportunity
Okay.
to also follow things online.
Jorg,
Yeah,
Monday
no.
morning, 4 to 9, lecture on campus or online?
No, I think the mornings are great to start your day off. I shifted from being an evening person to a morning person. In the morning you're so much more fit and stuff. But of course on Thursday night you're drinking, right? So then you have a hangover on Friday, and then you you don't want to go to the quarter 9 university lecture. That's a nice possibility that we can have. We can have that lecture physically there for all the motivated students that want to be there, that maybe studied it last night before instead of drinking. That's fine. And then people that have a hangover, they can watch it in the afternoon, watch it online with a recorded lecture. And that can be based on the recording lecture that you have, or that can be based on simple camera setup.
But
that
this
you
is
can-
going to
that's
be
difficult.
but this is going to be extra work for educators.
Yeah, and there should be more support for educators in overall. That's
Okay.
of course.
So we need
Very nice idea,
Okay.
but that's not
Cool.
useful.
Now, I'm going to go to you for the last thing. So you have the nice thing. You've been last on this topic. So I can also throw in another one, like we go to Friday evening or Friday afternoon for the lecture, or should we go for online?
Friday afternoon
Yeah.
during working hours.
Yeah.
Physical lecture, 100%. If we have the choice, definitely. I think it's good for students to meet each other.
I
to
just
get-
want to know which hours a little bit off.
Which hours are off?
Yeah, because I sometimes hear Monday morning is not very favorable. Friday morning.
Friday morning is unfavorable, I think.
Friday afternoon, I want to go home and things like that. So I want to see what's possible.
What is possible? Yeah, in my opinion, physical lecture is always possible, even when you're hungover.
Saturday
It's the
morning?
best way to just have to go to the university, and that gets you motivated.
Ah,
But
you need a little bit of time schedule.
I think for a lot of students, having that push is a good thing. Yes, if you can do it hybrid and you can also do it from your bed, would be nice. But looking at the amount of hours it takes for teaching staff that we don't have at this moment, that's not feasible. So let's keep it physical when we can do that again.
Okay, with that, we are at the end of this 45 minutes discussion about what the three parties think about what they want to achieve next year at the University Council. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and you guys, thanks for joining this very lively discussion.
And in general,
Thank you.
don't forget to vote on any
Yeah.
party. I think it's really
I
important
agree.
that
We
we have
have
a really high
time
turnover.
until today, Friday,
Friday,
Friday
12
12 o'clock.
But if you do it
And
today, you don't
In the
forget
morning.
it.
in
And
the
we have to beat at least the numbers of Rotterdam, which is at 6%. So that's easily be achieved. I'm
What percentage?
6%, and
We
I'm
got it.
sure we are
We
way over
We got
because the moment you vote, it means that they get your trust, and they will be able to say, this is what students want to do. Sometimes you not agree with them, but they can at least make sure that your voice is also heard and there's a good student voice. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
hosting, Herbert.
Yep.